Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is power. When chaos erupts, when emotions flare, when the world demands a reaction, you have a choice. You can lose control like everyone else, or you can rise above it. Emotional mastery is not born, it's built. It's a skill, a habit, a discipline. Most people obey their feelings. They speak before thinking. They react before acting. They get swept away by anger, fear, or panic. But the unshakable operate differently. They observe, they process, they respond. They turn pressure into clarity. This audiobook will teach you how to build that skill. Step by step, you'll learn to transform emotional chaos into calm authority. By the end, you won't just survive pressure, you'll command it. Welcome to the power of unshakable calm. Chapter 1. Silence before action. In a world obsessed with speed, immediacy, and constant reaction, the strongest people understand that the true power lies in the pause. Every time you respond without reflection, you give away control, you surrender clarity, and you allow the chaos around you to dictate your behavior. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is the space where thought overtakes impulse, where observation overtakes reaction, and where calm overtakes confusion. The pause is your first line of defense, your hidden weapon, the subtle yet unmistakable difference between those who act with intention and those who act out of emotion. The moment you learn to stop, watch, and measure before responding, you reclaim authority over your mind, your body, and your circumstances. Emotional mastery begins not with suppression, but with awareness. Before you act, before you speak, before you decide, take a step back. Observe the situation, observe the people, observe your own instincts. Recognize the immediate urge to react, anger, fear, frustration, desire, and understand that these impulses are only signals, not directives. They are indicators of what matters to you, of where your energy is invested, but they are not commands. The unshakable mind sees them for what they are, pauses, and chooses its next step with deliberate precision. This is the foundation of calm, noticing without needing to respond, understanding without needing to act. Silence is the medium in which clarity grows. Consider the leaders, the elite performers, the high-pressure decision-makers who never seem rattled. What separates them is not talent alone, nor knowledge, nor luck. It is their ability to inhabit the pause. A CEO confronted with a sudden crisis does not erupt in reaction. A surgeon facing life and death choices does not succumb to panic. A soldier in the middle of chaos does not act before observation. Each understands the fundamental principle. Calm is control, and control is power. The immediate reaction is cheap. The deliberate response is priceless. By giving yourself the space to watch, listen, and consider, you ensure that every move you make is intentional, every decision aligned, every action executed with mastery rather than desperation. The pause also protects your mental state. When you react immediately, you hand your emotions to the world. Your anger becomes their leverage. Your fear becomes their weapon. Your frustration becomes the fuel for mistakes. But when you pause, you reclaim ownership. You separate yourself from the noise. You build a buffer between stimulus and response. In this buffer lies choice. You can still feel the emotions, they are not erased, but they no longer dictate behavior. You become the observer of your own mind, the master of your own energy, the architect of your own responses. This is how calm becomes unshakable, how clarity becomes undeniable, and how emotional control becomes true strength. Every high-pressure environment offers a test of this principle. In the boardroom, in the battlefield, in relationships, in competitive sports, and in moments of personal crisis, the instinct to react first is strong. The temptation is immediate gratification, quick retaliation, impulsive words, and rash decisions. But the unshakable know that the momentary satisfaction of reaction is the currency of weakness. The reward of patience, the advantage of observation, the superiority of calculated action. These are the currencies of power. By allowing yourself the pause, you create leverage that others can never anticipate. You turn chaos into information, tension into insight, and pressure into advantage. The repetition theme is critical here. Pause first. Act second. This is not a suggestion. It is a law of mental fortitude. Every response starts in silence. Every argument, every negotiation, every moment of high stakes begins with the space between stimulus and action. This space is where choice is born. It is where strategy is formed. It is where strength crystallizes. The unshakable mind does not move out of habit or emotion. It moves out of observation, understanding, and conscious intent. The pause becomes a ritual, a discipline, a force multiplier. It trains the nervous system to resist instant gratification, to resist impulsivity, to resist the compulsion to react. Over time, this discipline rewires the mind, shaping responses that are not just appropriate but optimal, not just measured but decisive. Notice how even a simple pause changes the dynamic of human interaction. When you do not react immediately to provocation, to criticism, or to pressure, you subtly shift the balance of power. Others reveal their motives, their emotions, and their weaknesses while you remain steady. Your calm becomes a mirror. Their chaos becomes visible. Their attempts to manipulate, provoke, or unsettle you fail because you are no longer giving them the currency they seek: reaction. Every second you extend the pause, you collect data, process signals, and prepare an appropriate, precise, and controlled response. You convert potential vulnerability into strategic advantage. The silence before action also allows for foresight. Impulsive reactions are short-sighted. They prioritize immediate release over long-term results. Deliberate responses prioritize outcomes, align actions with goals, and anticipate consequences. By pausing, you see patterns, predict moves, and make decisions that extend beyond the moment. You gain the ability to respond in a way that serves you, not just emotionally but strategically. You gain the capacity to act with wisdom, not just with instinct. You gain the edge that separates those who are merely reactive from those who are unshakably effective. Mastery of the pause is not easy. It requires constant awareness, patience, and discipline. It demands that you resist the instinct to prove, defend, or dominate in the moment. It asks that you tolerate discomfort, frustration, and tension without surrendering to them. It teaches that true power is quiet, subtle, and invisible, yet undeniable. It reminds you that the loudest, fastest, and most immediate response is rarely the strongest. True strength is measured in control, in the ability to hold yourself steady when the world demands haste, in the courage to do nothing until the right action becomes clear. Every moment of silence before action compounds into mastery. Every pause strengthens the neural pathways of calm, clarity, and deliberate choice. Every measured response trains the mind to prioritize strategy over reaction, observation over impulse, and strength over weakness. It becomes second nature to hold back, to watch, to understand, and then to act with precision. Over time, this transforms not just how you handle pressure but how you experience life. You move from being at the mercy of circumstances to being the orchestrator of outcomes. You move from chaos to command. You move from reaction to mastery. In every interaction, in every challenge, and in every high-pressure scenario, remember this: the pause is your first and most potent weapon. Before words are spoken, before actions are taken, before emotions can hijack the moment, stop. Observe. Process. Choose. This is where the unshakable are made. This is where clarity is forged. This is where true strength, the strength that cannot be rattled, shaken, or undermined, is built. The habit of pausing before acting is not merely a technique. It is a philosophy, a discipline, and a lifestyle. Pause first. Act second. Let every moment of silence reinforce your control, every measured response strengthen your calm, and every deliberate action deepen your mastery. The unshakable do not react, they observe. They do not follow, they lead. They do not respond out of emotion, they act out of clarity. The pause is not just a tool, it is the foundation of unshakable calm, the blueprint for emotional mastery, and the first step in becoming unstoppable under pressure. Chapter 2. See emotion as data, not command. Emotions are not enemies, they are signals, indicators, messengers that alert you to what is happening within and around you. Anxiety rises not to punish you but to show that something matters, that risk exists, that the stakes are high. Anger is not a call to chaos, it is a flag that a boundary has been crossed, a value has been challenged, or an injustice has presented itself. Fear is not a limit, it is information, a way your mind communicates the need for caution or preparation. Most people treat emotion as a command, letting it dictate words, actions, and decisions. The unshakable see it differently. They read emotion like data, they interpret it, they analyze it, and they act with understanding, not impulse. Every emotional spike is an opportunity to gather intelligence about yourself, the situation, and the people around you. When you understand that emotion is not a directive, you stop being a puppet of your own feelings. You stop reacting to the surges of anxiety, the flashes of anger, the pangs of frustration. You begin to notice patterns. What triggers you, what situations provoke certain feelings, and how your body responds to stress. This awareness is not passive, it is preparation. It allows you to make decisions grounded in reality rather than hijacked by instinct. The unshakable mind experiences emotion fully, but it never surrenders to it. It acknowledges the presence of energy, it observes its source, and it chooses a course of action that aligns with purpose, not passion, and strategy, not sensation. Consider the way elite performers handle emotion. A pilot facing turbulence doesn't panic because they feel fear. A surgeon performing a delicate procedure does not freeze because their heart races. A high-level executive navigating conflict does not lash out when anger arises. Each uses emotion as input, not instruction. They collect the data, process it logically, and make decisions that serve the mission. In life, as in these high-pressure environments, those who treat emotion as a command lose. They are ruled by spikes in mood, reactions to perceived slights, and compulsions they cannot control. Those who treat emotion as data win. They move with foresight, respond with precision, and maintain control when others are swept away by chaos. The first step in this practice is awareness. Notice the first hint of emotional reaction. The tightening in your chest, the rush of heat to your face, the surge of energy in your limbs. Label it. Name it. Anxiety, anger, irritation, excitement. By naming it, you create distance. By observing it, you transform it from an order into information. The second step is context. Ask yourself, why is this happening? What does this emotion indicate about the situation, about my values, about my needs? The third step is choice. Now that you understand the data, decide how to act. You are no longer reactive. You are informed. You are deliberate. You are unshakable. Emotional intelligence is built on this principle. Understand first, act second. Most people invert this. They act first and analyze later, which is why impulsive decisions are filled with regret. The unshakable invert it. They analyze first, act second, and use emotion as a guide rather than a leash. In practice, this means that when anger rises, you do not yell. When anxiety flares, you do not freeze. When frustration builds, you do not lash out. Instead, you read the signals, interpret the message, and act in alignment with strategy and long-term goals. Your emotions become allies, not adversaries, energy sources, not dictators. Another critical aspect of seeing emotion as data is understanding its impermanence. Emotions are waves, they surge, crest, and fall. Acting impulsively on a peak emotion is like building a structure on shifting sand. Wait, observe. Notice the rise and fall. Analyze the intensity, the trigger, the implications. Then respond. The clarity that comes from patience is profound. A calm, calculated response carries far more weight than any immediate outburst. You begin to recognize that the strongest action is not the one that releases emotion, but the one that harnesses it, channels it, and directs it toward purpose. In addition, this approach protects your relationships and your reputation. Reacting to emotion without reflection often leads to regret, broken bonds, and unnecessary conflict. By treating emotion as data, you preserve dignity, authority, and influence. People notice the calm individual who responds rather than reacts. They respect the one who can hold steady under provocation. They trust the one who sees the full picture before moving. Emotional discipline then becomes not just an internal advantage but an external one. It positions you as someone reliable, capable, and unshakable. Repetition and practice are essential. Each time you pause and treat an emotion as information rather than a command, you reinforce new neural pathways. Your mind becomes trained to process signals instead of surrendering to them. Over time, anxiety no longer dictates hesitation, anger no longer dictates aggression, and frustration no longer dictates retreat. You move from emotional chaos to deliberate control. This is the essence of unshakable calm. Every surge of feeling is acknowledged, analyzed, and applied strategically. Emotion becomes your tool, not your tyrant. Emotions signal, they do not dictate. Let this principle guide every decision, every reaction, every high-stress moment. Observe before you act. Decode before you respond. Channel before you explode. When you see emotion as data, you reclaim power that most people hand away without realizing. Your mind becomes precise. Your actions become deliberate. Your calm becomes unstoppable. And in that calm, clarity and control are born, forging the unshakable strength that defines those who master themselves in a world designed to provoke them. Chapter 3. Control the internal dialogue. Your mind is the battlefield you cannot avoid. Every thought that passes through it has power, power to elevate, power to destroy, power to dictate the course of your day, your decisions, your life. Most people are unaware of this internal war. They allow fleeting doubts, fears, and insecurities to dominate their consciousness, and as a result, they react impulsively, falter under pressure, and surrender control. The unshakable understand that mastery begins internally. Before you can control the world, you must control the voice within, the commentary, the narrative that constantly whispers to you, shapes you, and sometimes sabotages you. Every reaction starts in thought. The moment anxiety flares, anger rises, or self-doubt creeps in, your mind generates a story. This story is either a tool or a trap. If you let it dictate your actions unchecked, you hand over your power. Weak minds feed on negative self-talk. I can't do this, I'm not ready, this is too hard. Each phrase chips away at confidence, each doubt tightens the chains that limit you. The unbreakable take a different approach. They listen to the thoughts, recognize them, and respond as a commander would to a report from the field. Calmly, strategically, and with authority. They do not argue with every anxious whisper, but they do not obey it blindly either. They assess, they correct, they deploy action in alignment with mission and purpose. Consider elite performers in high-stakes situations. Athletes, soldiers, surgeons, and CEOs all encounter stress, uncertainty, and chaos. What separates the exceptional from the average is not the absence of fear or pressure. It is how they speak to themselves internally. While others succumb to panic, replay mistakes, or second-guess decisions, the unshakable engage in deliberate self-talk. They replace "I can't" with "I will," "Why me?" with "Watch me." Every phrase is intentional, every thought a command that reinforces focus, confidence, and clarity. Over time, this practice rewires the mind. The internal dialogue becomes a weapon, not a liability, and the individual becomes impervious to distraction and doubt. The first step in controlling internal dialogue is awareness. You must notice what your mind says under stress before it influences action. Awareness is not passive. It is active listening, a reconnaissance of the self. Every fear, hesitation, or nagging doubt is observed without surrender. This allows you to separate emotion from decision, instinct from logic, and reaction from response. The second step is intervention. Interrupt destructive thoughts before they translate into behavior. Counter negative internal scripts with disciplined affirmations, reminders of past competence, and clear directives. You are the commander of your internal army. You do not allow insubordination. The third step is reinforcement. Repetition is essential. Every time you consciously redirect a negative or doubtful thought, you strengthen neural pathways that favor control, clarity, and resilience. Over weeks and months, the mind ceases to wander into panic or self-doubt and instead becomes a machine of focus, confidence, and precision. It is also essential to understand the difference between self-awareness and self-criticism. The unshakable monitor their thoughts not to punish themselves, but to gain intelligence, to understand where weaknesses may lie, and to address them with action, not guilt. Negative self-talk is a habit, a conditioned response, and like any habit, it can be unlearned. The stronger your internal dialogue, the less external noise, criticism, chaos, pressure can sway you. You learn to trust your mind, trust your preparation, and trust your decisions even when the world is uncertain or chaotic. Another layer of mastery is perspective. The internal dialogue of the unshakable is grounded in reality. It does not inflate problems, it does not invent enemies, it does not dramatize setbacks. It sees clearly, speaks calmly, and acts decisively. Thoughts like, "This is impossible," are replaced with, "This is challenging but solvable." Doubt becomes data. Anxiety becomes information. Indecision becomes a choice. By maintaining this disciplined narrative, the unshakable maintain focus, confidence, and composure regardless of circumstance. Repetition reinforces this control. Every deliberate internal correction strengthens the mind's resistance to chaos. The more often you speak to yourself like a commander rather than a victim, the more instinctive it becomes. Under pressure, when the stakes are high, the mind does not revert to fear or confusion. It moves with clarity, strategy, and authority. This is the foundation of unbreakable calm. Your thoughts become your allies, your voice becomes your weapon, and your focus becomes unassailable. The final truth is simple but profound. Your internal dialogue is the ultimate determinant of your performance, your resilience, and your power. The external world can provoke, test, and challenge you endlessly. Only the mind that is disciplined, that speaks with authority, that sees emotion as data and thought as command, will remain unshaken. Every victory begins in silence, within the mind, with the words you choose to repeat, the thoughts you choose to empower, and the voice you allow to lead. Speak to yourself like a commander, not a victim. Let this guide every decision, every reaction, and every moment of doubt. Train your mind relentlessly. Command your thoughts. Control your life. When your internal dialogue obeys, nothing outside can break you. Chapter 4. Breathing is the reset button. The mind and body are inseparable allies in the quest for calm and control. The unshakable know that mental mastery begins with physical mastery, and nowhere is this more evident than in the act of breathing. Breath is not merely a biological necessity, it is a tool, a reset button, a direct link to the nervous system and the emotional state. Most people are unaware of how much their shallow, erratic breathing amplifies stress, anxiety, and chaos. Panic feeds on quick, shallow breaths, oxygen-starved thinking, and racing hearts. Calm feeds on mastery of the body, and the body can be mastered through something as simple and profound as conscious breathing. When stress rises, when pressure mounts, the instinct is often to react, fast, loud, and uncontrolled. The heart races, muscles tense, thoughts scatter. In these moments, the breath becomes the single most powerful anchor. Deep, controlled inhalations fill the lungs fully, oxygen floods the bloodstream, and the nervous system begins to shift from fight or flight into a state of clarity and calm. This is not hypothetical, this is biology. The parasympathetic nervous system responds directly to deliberate breath patterns, slowing the heart, relaxing tension, and clearing mental fog. By controlling your breath, you control the internal environment in which decisions, reactions, and emotions emerge. The unshakable understand that every action, every reaction, and every decision is filtered through the body. A tense, panicked body produces panic-driven thoughts. A relaxed, deliberate body produces clarity-driven thoughts. Mastery of the breath is therefore mastery of the mind. Athletes, elite performers, and soldiers practice this relentlessly. A quarterback under pressure does not throw in panic. A sniper does not pull the trigger in chaos. A surgeon does not operate in fear. They anchor their focus, steady their hands, and command their minds through conscious breathing. The pattern is simple yet powerful. Inhale deeply, exhale fully, reset, observe, and then act. The pause created by this practice creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies control. Breath is also the bridge between emotion and logic. Anger, fear, and anxiety surge in the body before they reach conscious thought. Shallow, erratic breathing accelerates these emotions, feeding them until they take control. Deliberate breathing intercepts the process. It signals to the brain that threat has been assessed, that clarity is available, and that response can be measured rather than reactive. By anchoring in breath, the unshakable transform emotional energy from a chaotic force into a tool of focus, decision, and strategy. Panic no longer dictates movement. Composure dictates outcomes. This practice is not theoretical. It is habitual. In every moment of pressure, every confrontation, every challenge, the breath can be consciously controlled. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. Repeat. Repeat until the racing thoughts slow, until the heart slows, until the mind gains the perspective it needs to respond rather than react. Over time, this becomes automatic. Breath becomes instinctual, composure becomes automatic, and mental clarity becomes the default state even in chaos. The Unshakable do not only use breathing as a defensive mechanism, they use it proactively. Before critical decisions, before high-pressure situations, before moments that test their limits, they anchor in breath. This primes the nervous system for precision, focus, and resilience. Shallow, panicked breathing is the enemy. Deep, controlled breathing is the weapon. Physical control shapes mental control. The body communicates directly with the brain, and mastery of one ensures mastery of the other. Breath also creates rhythm in the chaos. When life becomes unpredictable, when external noise attempts to disrupt internal peace, the Unshakable return to their breath. Inhalation, exhalation, focus, reset. This rhythm forms a mental metronome, a pulse of clarity that allows them to navigate pressure without losing composure. External circumstances may remain turbulent, but the internal environment, the mind and body, remain steady. This is the power of controlled breath. It transforms uncertainty into order, chaos into calm, and reaction into response. Even in moments of extreme stress, the simplest act, a slow, deep breath, can reset the system. One inhale at a time, one exhale at a time, the mind regains control. Decisions become deliberate rather than desperate. Emotions become signals rather than commands. Action becomes measured rather than frantic. Breath, when used intentionally, is more than air. It is agency, it is authority, it is the difference between surrendering to pressure and commanding it. This chapter is a reminder that control is accessible, immediate, and embodied. You do not need permission to remain calm. You do not need perfect conditions. The power resides within you, in the simple mechanics of your body. Master your breath, and you master the bridge between thought and action. Master your breath, and chaos loses its dominion. Master your breath, and clarity, composure, and decisive strength become the default, not the exception. Control the breath, control the mind. Let this principle guide every decision, every reaction, and every moment of potential panic. The body is the gateway, the mind is the command center. When the breath obeys, the mind follows. Calm becomes instinct. Mastery becomes reality. Chapter 5. Detach from external chaos. The world is loud, messy, and relentless. It throws opinions, judgments, and emotions at you constantly. Most people allow this external chaos to dictate their internal state. A rude comment, a sudden conflict, a viral outrage, it all penetrates the mind, pulls at emotions, and diverts focus. The Unshakable know that this noise is irrelevant unless you give it power. Detachment is not indifference. It is control. It is the ability to observe without absorbing, to witness without being consumed. Emotional energy is precious, and surrendering it to chaos that does not belong to you is wasted power. Observe the patterns of the world without letting them control your pulse. When someone attempts to provoke you, when the environment threatens to destabilize, the first response is to notice, not to respond. Recognition without reaction creates distance between stimulus and behavior. In that space lies power. The less you allow external circumstances to dictate your emotions, the more authority you have over your mind. Leaders, elite performers, and unshakable individuals practice this consciously. They step back, watch, and then act from clarity rather than impulse. This is not coldness, it is mastery of what truly belongs to you, your thoughts, your focus, your energy. Chaos is relentless, but it only controls you if you grant it entry. Most people feel compelled to justify themselves, to explain, to retaliate, to participate in every storm that passes. Each reaction gives away a piece of internal territory. The Unshakable resist this instinct. They understand that external events are temporary, the internal environment is permanent. By detaching from drama, they conserve energy, sharpen clarity, and strengthen decision-making. Observation becomes armor. Silence becomes a weapon. Patience becomes power. The more you refuse to absorb chaos, the more stable your mind becomes. Detachment does not mean ignoring reality. It means controlling the influence that reality has over you. You can witness conflicts, criticism, and calamity without letting them dictate your emotional state. You can act decisively when necessary while remaining unaffected when provocation is aimless. The mind that absorbs external chaos becomes reactive, scattered, and vulnerable. The mind that detaches becomes precise, calm, and resilient. You gain clarity in the storm, perspective in conflict, and authority over every reaction. This practice is built on repeated awareness. Each time you notice yourself reacting to drama, each time you choose to step back, you reinforce the neural pathway of detachment. It becomes a habit, a default response, a shield against the relentless external noise. Over time, you will notice a profound shift. Events that once triggered anxiety, anger, or fear now pass like water off a rock. Your energy no longer disperses in futile emotional battles. It focuses entirely on what matters. External chaos loses its authority. Internal calm becomes unshakable. The unshakable do not waste time on drama. They conserve mental and emotional bandwidth for strategy, execution, and growth. They act when action is required and withdraw when it is not. They allow the world to move at its chaotic pace while maintaining a steady internal rhythm. They do not fight every battle, respond to every insult, or participate in every conflict. Instead, they choose control, clarity, and focus over emotional expenditure. Detachment is their tool, not their escape. It is their power, not their avoidance. Your attention is the currency of control. Giving it away to external chaos is equivalent to surrendering your most valuable asset. Every argument, every petty drama, every emotional trigger outside your domain is an opportunity for distraction. By refusing to be consumed, you reclaim authority over yourself. This detachment strengthens resilience, reinforces boundaries, and amplifies mental clarity. You begin to understand that the outside world is a mirror reflecting noise, but your reflection does not have to distort. You determine your inner state. Detachment also cultivates emotional neutrality. You respond from strategy, not from emotion. You maintain calm where others panic, patience where others react, and focus where others scatter. External chaos continues, but it is no longer a threat. Every instance of detachment reinforces the principle that the mind controls the perception of events, not the events themselves. Strength emerges from this practice, not from resisting the world, but from controlling the mind that faces it. What happens outside doesn't dictate inside. Repeat this constantly. Observe the world without surrendering your energy. Witness without reacting. Detachment is not an absence of feeling. It is the mastery of feeling, the reclaiming of focus, and the cultivation of unshakable calm. When you learn this, chaos becomes irrelevant. Your mind becomes the fortress, and nothing external can breach it. Chapter 6. Anger is energy, not guidance. Anger is one of the most misunderstood emotions. Most people treat it as a signal to react, to lash out, to let the heat of the moment dictate action. This is the trap. Anger, like any energy, is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. Its power lies in how it is used. Mismanaged, it clouds judgment, fuels regret, and leads to destruction. Managed, it becomes fuel for focus, precision, and decisive action. The unshakable understand that anger is energy, not guidance. It signals intensity, stakes, or perceived injustice, but it does not dictate response. Your mind is the command center, not your emotions. The first step is awareness. Recognize anger as it rises within you. Notice the physical sensations, the quickened heartbeat, the tension in the shoulders, the heat in the chest. Observe these signals without immediately obeying them. Do not act on impulse. Pause. Breathe. Step back mentally. By creating space between the feeling and your response, you reclaim authority over your behavior. Anger in its raw form is reactionary. Anger filtered through awareness becomes a tool of strategy. Next is translation. Channel the energy that anger provides into purposeful movement. Physical energy can become effort in training, mental energy can become problem solving, and emotional intensity can become focus and determination. The unshakable convert frustration into productivity rather than chaos. When others are blinded by fury, they react impulsively and scatter energy. When you harness it, you act with controlled force, clarity, and intention. Anger fuels execution. It does not dictate it. Real-world examples are abundant. Consider elite athletes in high-pressure situations. A competitor provokes, the crowd cheers, tension rises, but the best performers do not explode in emotion. They channel that energy into precision, speed, and strategy. Every ounce of anger becomes leverage. Every spike of emotion becomes a tool to dominate, not to destroy. Leaders, warriors, and creators who master this principle understand that misdirected anger wastes energy, while directed anger accelerates results. The unshakable do not suppress anger, they redirect it. Suppression builds pressure, resentment, and eventual breakdown. Redirection transforms it into clarity, motivation, and resilience. The principle is simple. Anger is raw energy, your mind is the filter. Decide consciously how that energy will be used. Will it control you or will you control it? Every instance of conscious direction reinforces mental dominance and emotional sovereignty. Anger also serves as a mirror. It highlights boundaries, reveals values, and signals what matters to you. Recognize these signals without surrendering to them. Let anger inform you, but let strategy guide you. Respond with thought, not impulse. By translating anger into action, you transform a reactive state into a proactive one. Energy once wasted in frustration becomes energy invested in results, growth, and progress. The discipline of controlling anger is cumulative. Each moment you refuse to be controlled by it strengthens your self-command. Each time you convert fury into focused effort, you build an unshakable mindset. Over time, this becomes automatic. Anger arises, awareness intercepts, energy channels, action follows. Chaos no longer dictates your performance. Calculated, directed force does. This is the essence of mastery over emotion. Direct it. Don't be directed by it. Let this guide every moment of frustration, confrontation, or provocation. Anger is inevitable, but destruction is optional. When you learn to direct it, emotional energy becomes a weapon, not a weakness. You remain composed, precise, and unstoppable while others crumble under the same fire. Anger ceases to be the master. It becomes the fuel. Chapter 7. Expect pressure, embrace it. Life does not wait for convenience. The world does not pause for your comfort. Chaos, stress, and pressure are constants. They arrive without invitation and they demand a response. Most people react poorly because they are caught off guard, believing that pressure is an enemy rather than a signal. The unshakable understand a different truth. Pressure is not a trap, it is a test. It reveals weaknesses, it exposes gaps, and it highlights areas where growth is overdue. The first step toward mastery is expectation. Anticipate stress. Accept that it will come. When pressure is foreseen, it becomes manageable rather than overwhelming. Preparation begins in the mind. Mental rehearsal, visualization, and scenario planning are not exercises. They are shields. By imagining high-stakes situations, by rehearsing responses, you remove the element of surprise that cripples most people. Pressure is neutral until you attach meaning to it. Those who panic see it as threat. Those who prepare see it as opportunity. Every high-pressure situation is a chance to prove resilience, to exercise discipline, and to sharpen focus. Your response is always a choice. Pressure becomes the platform for your strength, not the wedge that breaks you. Emotional regulation is critical under pressure. Anxiety, fear, and frustration arise automatically. Most people let these emotions dictate behavior. The unshakable do not. They recognize emotional spikes as data, not commands. A racing heart, tight shoulders, and shallow breath are all signals, the body alerting you to stress, but they are not orders. Awareness creates the gap between stimulus and reaction. This gap is where mastery lives. The ability to pause, observe, and act deliberately under pressure is what separates the average from the unbreakable. Physical control supports mental control. Pressure often manifests as tension, accelerated heartbeat, and shallow breathing. Calm, controlled breathing lowers the nervous system, restores clarity, and allow strategic thinking. Posture, movement, and pacing also impact perception. The body is the gateway to the mind. When it is steady, the mind follows. Those who anticipate pressure practice these techniques daily. They train responses, not emotions, so that when stress hits, reaction is precise and automatic rather than chaotic and impulsive. Expecting pressure also shifts perception. Events that would normally provoke panic become manageable. Chaos is reframed as a test of skill, a challenge to mastery, an opportunity to reinforce composure. The unshakable do not ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What can I control? How can I perform?" The world will always be unpredictable, but your stance does not have to be. By embracing pressure, you transform it from an external force into an internal proving ground. Stress is no longer feared, it becomes familiar, and familiarity breeds control. Repetition is key. Each encounter with pressure, when met with calm and intention, reinforces neural pathways of resilience. Each success under stress increases confidence and mental toughness. Over time, chaos loses its power to destabilize. Situations that once triggered fear now spark clarity and decisive action. The mind trained to expect pressure remains grounded when others falter. The body trained to handle pressure reacts efficiently when others freeze. Strength is cumulative, and pressure is the catalyst. Pressure is a test, not a trap. Repeat this as a mantra whenever life escalates, when stakes rise, or when chaos descends. Expect it, prepare for it, embrace it. Pressure does not break the unshakable, it reveals their depth, sharpens their focus, and hones their power. You will no longer be surprised. You will no longer be reactive. You will stand firm while the world around you collapses, because anticipation transforms chaos into opportunity, and calmness into mastery. Chapter 8. Stop defending, start observing. Most people approach life as if every word, glance, or gesture is a challenge to their identity. Every criticism becomes a threat, every disagreement a battlefield. Defensiveness rises automatically, reactions flare, and chaos takes hold. The unshakable understand that this is a trap of ego, emotion, and impulsivity. Defending yourself is rarely about truth, it is about perception. It is about feeding the story of who you think you are to the world. But observation, calm awareness, and measured response are different. Observation does not concede weakness, it claims power. When you watch more and react less, you control the energy, not the situation. Observation begins with stillness. Pause when provoked. Listen without forming an immediate rebuttal. Notice what is being said, how it is being said, and why it is being said. Notice the emotional undercurrents, the intentions, and the patterns. Defensiveness narrows perception. Observation expands it. While others are entangled in defending their position, you gather data. You understand motives, predict reactions, and prepare strategic responses. The power of seeing before speaking cannot be overstated. The unshakable know that control comes not from confrontation, but from comprehension. Criticism is a mirror, not a weapon. When someone attacks, it often reflects their fears, biases, or insecurities, not your worth. Observation allows you to separate signal from noise. You can discern what is actionable, what is trivial, and what is designed to provoke. Responding impulsively gives power away. Observing with clarity ensures that your energy is used effectively. The world will always present challenges, comments, judgments, and conflicts, but your response determines your strength, not theirs. Defensiveness escalates energy, fuels tension, and triggers emotion. Observation, however, diffuses it. You become immune to manipulation, immune to provocation. In meetings, in relationships, in casual interactions, your calm presence shifts dynamics. Others react emotionally, you respond intentionally. The room adjusts to your steadiness, and your influence grows not by raising your voice, but by remaining unshaken. The ability to observe while others react is a force multiplier for mental and emotional power. Real-world examples abound. Elite negotiators, military strategists, and top performers in any field practice observation before reaction. They listen more than they speak, note patterns before deciding, and act with precision when the time is right. Every moment spent observing rather than defending builds a reservoir of control that cannot be matched by impulsive reaction. The mind trained in observation becomes a tool for strategic advantage. It converts potential conflict into calculated progress. Observation also cultivates self-mastery. By pausing to watch your own impulses, you begin to recognize triggers, biases, and emotional habits. Awareness of self is the first step to controlling self. The more you practice watching, the less reactive you become, and the more deliberate your actions grow. Over time, defensiveness becomes obsolete. You no longer fight to justify yourself. You move forward with clarity, poise, and intent. Watch more. React less. Make this your mantra in every encounter. Let observation be the default mode of your mind. When criticism comes, watch. When chaos erupts, watch. When provocation seeks to draw you in, watch. In every instance, pause, observe, and let composure guide your action. The unshakable do not get dragged into conflict. They choose where, when, and how to expend energy. Watching more, reacting less is not weakness, it is power. It is the control that separates those who are moved by life from those who move through life with unbreakable calm. Chapter 9. Reflect, don't ruminate. Most people mistake replaying events in their mind as reflection, but what they are really doing is ruminating. They dwell on what went wrong, who was at fault, and how unfair life is. This mental loop consumes energy, heightens emotion, and blinds them to learning. Reflection, on the other hand, is deliberate, purposeful, and calm. It is the art of reviewing experiences without the interference of ego or emotion. The unshakable understand that reflection is a tool for improvement, while rumination is a trap that reinforces weakness. Reflection teaches, rumination punishes. The first step in true reflection is detachment. After a stressful encounter or conflict, pause. Remove yourself mentally from the heat of the moment. Observe what occurred as if you were an impartial strategist, not a participant caught in emotion. Ask questions like, what could I control? What did I misread? What patterns are repeating? The goal is not to assign blame or relive frustration. It is to extract insight that can improve your future performance. Every interaction, every challenge, every mistake contains data. The mind that captures that data calmly grows stronger, faster, and smarter than the one that obsesses over it. Energy management is critical. Rumination hijacks the nervous system, keeping the body in fight or flight mode long after the actual event has passed. Heart rate stays elevated, muscles tense, focus scatters. Reflection, however, channels attention into constructive analysis. By separating fact from emotion, you reclaim power. You learn from outcomes without being enslaved by them. The mind trained in reflection turns every setback into a lesson, every criticism into a roadmap, and every failure into a stepping stone. Strategic reflection requires honesty. It is not about comforting yourself or justifying actions. It is about identifying gaps and opportunities for growth. Did you overreact? Did you miss cues? Did you maintain composure? These questions, asked objectively, sharpen judgment and build resilience. Over time, repeated reflection develops foresight. You begin to anticipate reactions, understand dynamics, and respond proactively rather than reactively. The unshakable mind is not surprised. It learns, adapts, and strengthens continuously. Real-world examples reinforce this principle. Elite athletes watch game footage not to relive mistakes emotionally, but to identify patterns and improve performance. Leaders debrief after critical negotiations, separating emotion from facts to refine strategy. Soldiers conduct after-action reviews, focusing on execution and outcomes, not blame. In every field, reflection is the difference between repetition of failure and mastery of performance. It is the calm, analytical processing that converts experience into skill, insight, and power. Reflection also fortifies emotional control. By practicing calm analysis, the mind learns to observe without judgment, to extract learning without attachment. Emotional spikes that once triggered panic or aggression now serve as signals to guide strategic thought. Over time, the pattern becomes automatic. You no longer stew in frustration, regret, or fear. You process, adapt, and prepare for the next challenge with clarity and intent. Analyze, don't agonize. Let this guide every post-conflict, post-stress, or post-challenge review. Pause, detach, and examine. Focus on lessons, not feelings. Extract wisdom, not wounds. The unshakable do not carry emotional baggage. They carry knowledge, insight, and calm. Reflection, done properly, transforms mistakes into mastery, chaos into clarity, and experience into unbreakable mental strength. Chapter 10. Build routines of calm. Calm is not something that happens to you, it is something you create. Most people wait for life to slow down, for problems to vanish, for motivation to appear, and then wonder why they are constantly overwhelmed. The unshakable understand that calm must be built daily, brick by brick, habit by habit. Meditation, focused breathing, planning your day, journaling, deliberate reflection. These are not optional activities. They are the tools of mental fortification, the architecture of your emotional resilience. When repeated consistently, they create a baseline that does not crumble under pressure, a foundation that allows clarity and composure to thrive even in the most chaotic circumstances. Calm is proactive, not reactive. It is prepared for, practiced, and perfected long before the storm arrives. Consistency is the true power behind calm. Your nervous system adapts to repeated patterns, and when you consistently train it to pause, observe, and respond, it becomes your default mode. You no longer rely on fleeting motivation, fleeting energy, or fleeting circumstances to remain steady. The small, repeated actions, sitting quietly for 10 minutes, writing your priorities down, breathing deeply in moments of tension, compound over time into a mental fortress. Each day you invest in these practices, your ability to handle stress grows, your reactions become measured rather than impulsive, and your mind starts to operate with precision rather than panic. Calm is cultivated, not accidental, and it is forged in the quiet repetition of discipline. Routines of calm also give you control over your decision-making. When your baseline is steady, your thinking is not hijacked by emotion, anxiety, or distraction. You can see situations clearly, analyze them rationally, and respond deliberately rather than react instinctively. Meditation sharpens focus, planning removes uncertainty, and structured reflection creates a map for navigating challenges without being swept away by them. Over time, these repeated habits wire your mind to operate in a state of controlled composure. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the commander of your own internal state. Life will always be unpredictable. Crises, conflicts, and chaos are inevitable. The difference between those who falter and those who thrive is preparation. Those who thrive have invested in routines that reinforce calm daily, turning it into a natural state. Calm becomes contagious internally, influencing every choice you make, every interaction you have, and every outcome you create. It is a force multiplier, giving you the ability to think clearly, act decisively, and navigate complexity with confidence. The practice of calm is not glamorous. It is quiet, repetitive, and sometimes boring. But the results are profound. A mind trained to remain steady under pressure is unshakable, resilient, and precise. It is the calm in the storm, the eye in the chaos, the anchor that steadies everything around you. Every morning you commit to your habits, every night you review and reflect. Every deliberate breath in the middle of tension adds to this invisible strength. You cannot outsource calm. You cannot wish it into existence. It must be built, protected, and reinforced. The unshakable understand that every moment invested in these routines is a deposit into their emotional bank, a safeguard against the volatility of life. They know that calm is not merely a state, it is a discipline, a practice, a lifestyle. Remember, pause first, act second. Consistency in these routines ensures that when life tests you, you do not crumble. You do not overreact. You respond. You observe, you measure, you execute with clarity. This is the power of routines of calm. This is the secret weapon of the unshakable mind. Calm is cultivated, not accidental, and every habit you build reinforces it, strengthens it, and makes it unbreakable. Chapter 11. Master your triggers. Your emotions are not random, they are responses to triggers, signals from your environment that your mind has learned to react to over time. Most people live their lives enslaved by these triggers, reacting impulsively, emotionally, and often destructively, giving away their power with every uncontrolled response. The unshakable do not ignore triggers, they study them. They identify the situations, people, and patterns that provoke them, dissecting the source of emotional reaction so that it can be controlled rather than obeyed. Awareness is the first step toward mastery. The moment you recognize a trigger, you gain the ability to choose your response instead of being driven by instinct. Knowledge is power, and in emotional mastery, knowing what provokes you is the gateway to control. Triggers are inevitable. Someone will criticize you unfairly, a situation will frustrate you, or a past memory will surface when you least expect it. What separates the unshakable from the ordinary is not the absence of triggers but the response to them. When a trigger appears, you do not panic. You do not lash out. You pause, observe, and process. You understand that the stimulus is not the command, and your reaction is not predetermined. Awareness transforms chaos into opportunity. It allows you to remain calm, collected, and deliberate even when the world around you is designed to provoke you. The mind that masters triggers recognizes patterns. Certain people will push buttons, certain environments will provoke stress, and certain habits will ignite fear or anger. By identifying these patterns, you can preemptively create strategies for maintaining composure. You might take deep breaths before engaging, set clear emotional boundaries, or mentally rehearse your responses before walking into predictable conflict. This preparation ensures that when the inevitable occurs, your reaction is measured, precise, and intentional. You convert triggers from threats into tools, from distractions into data. Each trigger becomes a chance to practice calm, to reinforce discipline, and to strengthen the architecture of your unshakable mind. Self-awareness is critical. The unshakable continuously reflect on moments when triggers influence behavior. They ask, why did I react this way? And, how could I respond differently next time? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are tools of improvement. Each analysis rewires neural pathways, replacing automatic emotional responses with intentional, controlled actions. Over time, repeated reflection and conscious adjustment make mastery of triggers almost effortless. What once provoked anger or anxiety now becomes neutral, understood, and manageable. Mastering triggers is not about suppression. It is about transformation. You do not numb yourself to life. You heighten your awareness, sharpen your control, and reclaim energy that would otherwise be wasted on emotional chaos. Every response that is consciously controlled reinforces your resilience and trains your mind to maintain clarity under pressure. This is how emotional power multiplies. One controlled response leads to another, until composure becomes habitual, and reactive chaos becomes a relic of the past. The most powerful people are not those who face fewer provocations. They are those who have trained themselves to respond strategically when provoked. When you know your triggers, you no longer hand your power to external events or people. You decide how to act. You choose calm over panic, clarity over confusion, and strategy over reaction. Triggers become mirrors, revealing your growth areas, your habitual responses, and your opportunities for mastery. Each trigger mastered is a step closer to complete emotional sovereignty. Repetition reinforces mastery. The more you consciously respond rather than react, the more automatic composure becomes. The more you reflect on your triggers and plan your responses, the less chance they have to control you. Awareness, practice, and reflection create a feedback loop of unshakable control. The unshakable mind is not one without triggers. It is one that anticipates, observes, and commands the response before the chaos has a chance to dictate behavior. Remember, triggers are signals, not commands. You can feel them without obeying them. You can recognize the stirrings of anger, fear, or frustration without allowing them to dictate your actions. Each trigger mastered is a reinforcement of your inner authority, a proof that you are no longer a slave to impulse or emotion. You reclaim power by choosing deliberate, calm, and controlled action every single time. Know the trigger. Control the response. Awareness converts potential chaos into precision. Emotional mastery is not luck. It is deliberate, consistent practice. Every step toward understanding your triggers is a step toward unshakable calm, unwavering composure, and unstoppable focus. The mind that masters its triggers becomes unbreakable because it no longer reacts. It commands, it observes, and it executes with clarity under any circumstance. Chapter 12. Speak with control, not emotion. Words are powerful. They carry energy, influence thought, and shape perception. Yet most people speak as though they are powerless, letting emotion dictate every syllable, reacting impulsively, and handing away authority with every uncontrolled outburst. The unshakable understand that speech is not merely communication. It is a tool of control, a lever of influence, and a reflection of internal mastery. What you say, how you say it, and the timing of your speech can either escalate chaos or restore calm. Speaking with control is not about silence or avoidance. It is about deliberate choice. You pause before responding, you assess the situation, and you measure your words against the desired outcome rather than the intensity of your feelings. Immediate emotional reactions are a form of surrender. When you respond in anger, panic, or defensiveness, you give power to the situation and relinquish control over perception. Every sharp word, every reactive retort compounds the chaos. Those who master speech under pressure are not those who dominate with volume. They dominate with timing, tone, and precision. A calm, measured voice commands attention, inspires confidence, and diffuses tension. It communicates authority not through force but through control. The unshakable know that their words are extensions of their mind. By controlling speech, they control the narrative, the room, and often the outcome. Pause is your greatest ally. Silence before speaking allows thought to override emotion. It is the bridge between feeling and action, giving your logic time to align with your intention. The brief pause may seem small, but it holds immense power. In that moment, the unshakable weigh consequences, anticipate reactions, and select language that serves strategy rather than ego. The ordinary reacts instantly and leaves destruction in their wake. The composed reflect, respond, and reclaim control with every carefully chosen word. Clarity is paramount. Words spoken in haste, laced with emotion, rarely convey the intended meaning. Controlled speech communicates precision, authority, and stability. It signals that you are grounded, unshaken, and in command of both your mind and the environment. People naturally follow those who speak deliberately, because the calmness in their tone reassures, the confidence in their phrasing commands respect, and the absence of frantic emotion signals competence. Authority is built not by shouting over others, but by speaking with intention that cannot be ignored. The unshakable also recognize the invisible power of restraint. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Not every correction or critique requires expression. Choosing when to speak and what to say multiplies your influence. Sometimes saying nothing says more than any string of words. Silence paired with control signals confidence, detachment, and strategic thinking. It communicates that you are not reacting, you are leading. Controlled speech is not a mask. It is the natural extension of a mind that has mastered internal calm. Practice transforms mastery into instinct. The more you consciously choose words over reactions, the more automatic control becomes. Over time, measured speech becomes second nature. Your words carry weight because they are never wasted on impulse. Even in the heat of conflict or pressure, the unshakable speak with purpose, clarity, and authority. They do not need to dominate. They influence effortlessly because each word is deliberate, each pause intentional, and each response calculated. Remember, emotion is guidance, not instruction. You can feel anger, fear, or frustration without allowing it to drive your speech. You can acknowledge intensity without giving it a voice that destroys calm. Every time you speak with control rather than emotion, you reinforce authority over yourself and your environment. You reclaim the energy that would otherwise fuel chaos and redirect it toward strategic impact. Controlled speech creates controlled situations. It is both shield and sword, protecting composure while shaping outcomes. The unshakable never underestimate the power of words. They understand that communication is an extension of the mind, a mirror of inner discipline, and a tool for shaping reality. By speaking with control, they command attention, preserve clarity, and create influence. Every deliberate pause, every carefully chosen phrase, every calm response strengthens internal mastery and external authority. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty, the ability to navigate pressure, conflict, and chaos with words that reflect the mind's unshakable calm. Controlled speech is habit, practice, and strategy combined. The more you cultivate it, the more it becomes instinctive, and the more others instinctively recognize your authority. Every conversation is an opportunity to reinforce calm, to direct influence, and to master the subtle art of communication under pressure. Speak with control, not emotion. Let clarity guide your voice, let purpose govern your words, and let every response strengthen your unshakable presence. Chapter 13. Embrace loneliness, not chaos. True calm is rarely found in crowds, in constant chatter, or in the approval of others. It is forged in solitude, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when the noise of the world fades and all that remains is you. Loneliness is not punishment, it is practice. It is the crucible in which focus, clarity, and unshakable composure are forged. Those who crave approval, who rely on constant feedback, will always be at the mercy of external chaos. The unshakable, however, embrace being alone because they understand that peace and control are cultivated within, not outside. Distraction is the enemy of clarity. Every alert, every message, every conversation pulling at your attention chips away at your mental strength. Chaos surrounds us constantly, but the mind that masters calm treats it as background noise. Solitude allows reflection, awareness, and deep processing. It is in those quiet moments that patterns become visible, decisions become clearer, and emotional triggers lose their grip. Standing alone is not weakness, it is preparation. Every minute spent comfortable in your own company strengthens your ability to remain unshaken when the world rages around you. Solitude trains resilience because it removes dependency on external validation. The unshakable do not require applause, approval, or recognition to maintain focus. Their calm is self-generated, self-sustained, and self-affirmed. Loneliness teaches the mind to rely on itself, to observe without distraction, and to operate with discipline independent of social comfort. Whereas chaos excites, agitates, and fragments attention, controlled isolation strengthens presence, enhances perspective, and deepens inner authority. It is the mind's gym, the silent training ground where emotional endurance is built. Choosing loneliness over chaos is a conscious act. It is not about avoiding people or life, it is about selecting what deserves your attention and what does not. The unshakable recognize that not every conversation, confrontation, or conflict requires participation. By stepping away from noise and overstimulation, they protect the integrity of their mental space. Each decision to remain calm amidst potential chaos is a micro-victory, a reinforcement of inner authority. It is the consistent practice of prioritizing clarity over reaction, observation over impulse, and stillness over frenzy. Loneliness is also the mirror of self-accountability. Without constant external distractions, you are confronted with your own habits, your own thoughts, and your own responsibility. The unshakable do not fear reflection. They use it as a tool to refine strategy, strengthen focus, and correct deviation. In solitude, every misstep, every weak thought, and every lapse in composure becomes visible, measurable, and correctable. Chaos, on the other hand, buries weaknesses in noise, dilutes focus, and perpetuates reactive behavior. Solitude exposes the truth, and truth is the raw material for mastery. Solitude nurtures patience and the ability to endure discomfort without surrender. Emotional control is not tested in comfort. It is tested when the mind is left alone with its impulses, when the body demands distraction, and when the environment offers nothing but stillness. Those who flee this state weaken. Those who embrace it grow stronger. The mind that can stand alone can stand through storms. The calm cultivated in isolation becomes an unshakable shield, protecting thought, action, and presence from external interference. Being alone also amplifies strategic thinking. With fewer distractions, the mind can plan, anticipate, and observe without interruption. Insight arises from focus. Focus arises from absence of chaos. The unshakable use solitude not as a retreat but as a launch pad for deliberate action. While others are distracted by noise, drama, and emotion, they move with purpose, precision, and clarity. Loneliness, when chosen wisely, magnifies mental control, sharpens awareness, and strengthens the capacity to operate under pressure. The repetition of embracing solitude solidifies its power. Every moment spent resisting the temptation to chase distraction, every decision to prioritize calm over company, every interval of quiet focus reinforces the mind's authority over impulse and environment. It is in the small, repeated choices to embrace loneliness over chaos that unshakable calm is programmed. Isolation becomes less intimidating and more familiar. Stillness transforms from a passive state to an active strategy. Emotional turbulence loses its potency because the mind has trained itself to stand unmoved. Remember, loneliness is not emptiness, it is refinement. Chaos is not challenge, it is dilution. By embracing solitude, you reclaim your attention, reclaim your energy, and reclaim your power. Isolation becomes a crucible, a proving ground, and a sanctuary for mental mastery. The unshakable walk this path daily, prioritizing inner clarity over external distraction, and learning that true calm is cultivated when the world steps away and leaves you with nothing but yourself. Isolation is the crucible of calm. Each time you choose stillness over noise, observation over reaction, and reflection over chaos, you forge unshakable mental strength that no storm can erode. Loneliness is not a punishment, it is the training ground for power, resilience, and control. The unshakable do not fear standing alone. They thrive in it because in solitude they become unbreakable. Chapter 14. Decision without panic. In high-pressure moments, most people freeze, flail, or make hasty choices driven by fear. Panic hijacks the mind, clouds judgment, and turns urgency into chaos. The unshakable understand that speed does not require stress. Urgency is necessary, but panic is optional. Acting quickly under pressure is a skill, one built not from emotion but from clarity, preparation, and focus. The ability to decide fast while remaining calm separates those who succeed under fire from those who crumble. Panic is contagious. It spreads from person to person, situation to situation, feeding on attention, amplifying emotion, and escalating problems that could have been simple. Calm, on the other hand, is equally contagious. One composed mind in a room of chaos can stabilize, direct, and lead. The unshakable train themselves to act decisively without allowing fear to dictate pace. They know that hesitation is costly, but reckless speed fueled by emotion is catastrophic. Every decision must be grounded in observation, not impulse, and action must follow understanding, not reaction. Decision without panic begins with preparation. Anticipation breeds composure. The mind that has rehearsed scenarios, analyzed possibilities, and understood potential outcomes can move quickly when pressure hits because it already knows the path. Preparation replaces fear with foresight, uncertainty with options, and hesitation with execution. When everyone else reacts, panics, and second-guesses, the trained mind moves. The difference between chaos and control is often a single calm thought before the first action is taken. Clarity comes from separating urgency from emotional noise. Stress triggers the body's fight-or-flight response, accelerating heart rate, narrowing focus, and making the mind seek immediate action, often at the expense of correctness. Emotional mastery teaches you to pause long enough to filter instinct from insight, to breathe deeply enough to reset your nervous system, and to observe clearly before committing to a course. The unshakable decide under pressure with speed, but their speed is guided by strategy, not fear. Every motion is deliberate, every word precise, and every decision intentional. Quick action does not mean rash action. It does not mean moving first and thinking later. Urgency without panic is precision under time pressure. It is the ability to recognize what matters, filter what does not, and commit fully without hesitation. People who lack this skill either delay endlessly, consumed by fear of being wrong, or they act impulsively, creating new problems faster than they solve old ones. The unshakable understand that calmness amplifies speed, while panic slows even the fastest hands. Repetition strengthens this skill. Each time you face a decision and consciously remove fear from the equation, the habit solidifies. The mind learns that urgency does not require emotion. Pressure does not demand panic. Confidence grows from experience, discipline, and reflection. Acting with composure becomes automatic, a default response rather than an exception. Over time, the unshakable make rapid, correct decisions under stress with the same ease others struggle to find when calm. This mastery extends beyond high-stakes moments. Every day offers opportunities to practice decision without panic. In emails, in conversations, in choices where others may overreact or fret. The more you apply calm under minor pressures, the easier it becomes under major ones. Emotional control compounds. Confidence becomes habitual. The mind learns that clarity is faster than chaos, and composure is stronger than haste. The world rewards the calm actor. Quick, clear, decisive, and unflinching. Panic leads to mistakes. Hesitation leads to regret. Emotion leads to compromise. Those who cultivate the ability to decide without panic gain leverage in every arena, personal, professional, and emotional. They move when others freeze, act when others delay, and perform when others crumble. It is a superpower hidden in plain sight, available to anyone willing to train the mind rather than surrender it to fear. Decide fast, act calm. Each moment you face pressure and respond with clarity instead of fear, you reinforce your emotional mastery. Panic is optional. Urgency is inevitable. The unshakable know that the mind trained to move swiftly without surrendering composure will always navigate storms better than those swept by them. Calm is the multiplier. Clarity is the engine. Decisive action is the result. Chapter 15. Calmness is strength. Power is often mistaken for volume, for speed, for the ability to dominate through noise or aggression. The unshakable know that true strength lies not in how loud you are, how fast you react, or how hard you push, but in how composed you remain when the world is at its loudest, when chaos is at its peak, when pressure threatens to break everyone around you. Calmness is quiet, but it is unstoppable. It does not bend, it does not falter. It steadies, it directs, it multiplies effectiveness. Those who master it are rarely caught off guard. They see clearly, act deliberately, and maintain control when others crumble. Calmness is influence. People naturally respond to those who are composed. A calm presence diffuses tension, attracts attention, and commands respect. In moments of crisis, while others panic, your steady mind becomes the center of clarity. Decisions are made faster, more accurately, and more strategically. Leadership is not asserted through volume. It is demonstrated through calm confidence under fire. Calmness speaks silently but with authority louder than any shout. It turns moments of uncertainty into opportunities and chaos into advantage. Resilience is born in calmness. When the mind does not fluctuate with every provocation, when emotion does not dictate action, every setback becomes manageable, every obstacle navigable, and every challenge a chance to grow stronger. Calmness is the cushion that absorbs shocks without letting them disrupt momentum. It is the inner armor that allows you to move forward without fear of what might happen, because you have learned to face whatever comes with an unshakable center. The unshakable mind does not react impulsively, it responds thoughtfully, efficiently, and effectively, turning pressure into practice, stress into strategy, and conflict into clarity. Calmness is cultivated through practice. It does not arrive spontaneously, nor is it inherited. Every day offers chances to train it, through meditation, through controlled breathing, through deliberate response instead of impulsive reaction. Each moment you choose to observe instead of react, to listen instead of interrupt, to process instead of panic, you strengthen this inner power. Every challenge faced with composure reinforces your capacity to remain unflinching under future pressures. The mind, like a muscle, grows stronger each time it chooses calm over chaos. Understanding calmness also means understanding what not to do. Most people expend energy on arguing, defending, or reacting to situations that are beyond their control. Calmness preserves energy, focuses effort, and channels power into actions that matter. It is selective, strategic, and intentional. A calm person does not waste effort proving a point. They conserve strength for what truly requires it. This selectivity amplifies results and allows you to dominate in situations where others are scattered, reactive, and overwhelmed. Calmness is not passivity. It is active composure, deliberate stillness, and mental clarity in motion. It is a decision to observe, understand, and act with precision. Those who misunderstand it see it as weakness. They confuse quiet with lack of power, but calmness is the force multiplier of the unshakable. It is the foundation of emotional mastery, mental toughness, and strategic advantage. In every arena of life, calmness enables superior performance. It gives you leverage over others, over circumstances, and over yourself. Ultimately, calmness becomes your identity. It shifts from being a skill you practice to a state you embody. The unshakable do not panic because calmness is their default. They are composed under pressure, clear under chaos, and confident under challenge. Others may react impulsively, crumble under stress, or be led by fear, but the calm mind navigates with certainty, executes with precision, and influences outcomes with quiet authority. Calmness is not only strength, it is supremacy. Master calm, master life. Every moment you maintain composure, every decision made without emotional hijacking, every crisis met with clarity reinforces this principle. Calmness multiplies power, enhances influence, and builds resilience. It is the invisible force that separates those who survive from those who thrive, those who react from those who rule, and those who stumble from those who stand unshakable always. Your emotions are not your master, they are your instrument. Panic, anger, and stress are natural, but they only control those who let them. Calmness is your armor. Observation is your sword. Discipline is your foundation. Every situation that would overwhelm others is an opportunity for you to rise. The world will push, provoke, and challenge you, but you will not crack. Your challenge is simple. Practice composure in every moment, not just when convenient. Respond with clarity, act with precision, and remain unshakable when chaos strikes. Because emotional mastery is not a gift. It is a choice. And today the choice is yours.